Welcome to the R video tutorial on splines part 10. So here we're going to start talking about quadratic splines, because if you remember in the last video I mentioned that all of the splines we've made so far, if we look at this one even here, have corners on them, and we'd like them to be nice and smooth. But the idea is pretty much the same as what we have before, but here we're just going to change our basis functions, or our what I called knots before, our basis functions, from lines to quadratic functions. So what we're going to do is we're going to take what we've already done and just copy and paste and make a few changes. So if you haven't watched the previous videos, you're going to want to go back and do that, because I'm going to go back in the code and get the code that I need and just modify it, because there's no point in reinventing the wheel every single time. So the first thing we're going to need is our knot function that we created at the top. So if we come up here, somewhere along the way, we made a knot function, and here it is. It was in part 2, so if you didn't go back to part 2 yet, go back there and grab this function. This is the one we built. It's going to do this for us, so I'm going to drag this down, and I'm going to paste it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change it to knot 2, okay? And we're going to have to do a few minor other changes to it, but not much. So here we're going to have x1 is greater than k1. And here we are going to take this and we're going to square it, just like a quadratic. So that should be pretty reasonable from our notion so far. So these are the only changes we made. Changed right here. x1 is greater than k1. And this x minus k1 is squared. Now, this x2 greater than 0 wouldn't work because this thing's always positive. So that's why we had to make that change. All right, now, when did we use this? We used this when we build our x matrix, so we need to go up and grab that. So first, let's put a little comment here. Change the x not 1 function. Put here. Comment squared here and changed here. So if you go back and look at the previous function, you'll see this is the change we made. So now we're going to scroll back up and we're going to use this when we made our x matrix function right here. So we used our function here, the x not 1 function. So we're going to have to change this function as well. So I'm just going to copy and paste it, just like before. Drag it on down. And I'm going to here put change. This is going to be our comment. We are not going to have to change that much. Change the x cannot, not function 1. Okay, so we're going to call this 2. Everything else is going to be the same. We're going to have to change this to 2. But we need to add one other thing. So when we're building these, we're building quadratics. And right now we only have a linear term in. How do we know we have a linear term in? Because we've only used x1 and we haven't squared it yet. So we need to put in another column here. So we're going to take xmat1 and we're just going to c-bind onto it xmat1. And then we're going to take x1 and we're going to square it. So just with these simple changes here, we've now got another function that we can use, which means that we can now go up and grab our spline function that we made using this. So we can change our spline function here. I'm just going to grab it. And I only need to change these items here, just this x naught function too. Okay, so we're going to need to change the spline function 1. We're going to make it 2. And here, notice we had used the x not 1. The regression thing stays the same. Don't need to change that. So I just changed a few little places here, and now I have another function that I can use. And what I can do is I can now use this exactly as I had before. So I've got my data over here that I'm just going to add on to. So I'm just going to take what we did last time and just change it a little bit. Okay, so right here is what we did last time, and I'm going to add this on here. And I got to think of a good color to add on there because it's a spaghetti of colors, but we'll make it work. So here's what we have. We now have our spline function 2. Gonna need a 2 there. We're going to need a 2 there. And the rest of this can be the same. But first, let's run this and make sure everything works here real quick. So we've changed these. We're going to run them, make sure things look right. Okay, it gave me coefficients here, so that's a very positive thing. Now we're going to see if it actually changed anything. Now I'm leaving the knots in the same places because I want to see these corners on top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color, and maybe I'll make it red, and then I'm also going to change the line type just to see if it makes it look any better. So I'm going to make the line type equal to 2, and we'll see what this looks like. And sure enough, we get something that is, let me zoom into it, it's smoother. Does it fit as well? No, not really. But notice that it is smooth. It no longer has corners. However, it does have these weird bumps because we chose our knots to be in weird places. Now, where you chose them to be in linear places is one thing, but notice the knot matches there. We go from one quadratic to another quadratic, up to another quadratic, to another quadratic, and then another quadratic. So we need to choose this a little bit wiser, but in the sense of it being cornery, it's no longer cornery. Now it's a smooth curve. And this is the easy way to take this and just take what we have here, and we've turned it from a first order spline into a second order spline. Now we can do the same thing and go into a third order spline, which is a cubic spline, which is what we will do in the next video. So see you there.